That was from the utterly fabulous, incredible, moving and new performance of La Traviata, showing at Paris's Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. It's the creation of British director of theatre and opera, Deborah Warner, known for her collaborations with the Royal Shakespeare Company. She's multi-award winning and has been directing since she was 21. Deborah, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to have you. What a beautiful early Christmas present you've brought us here in Paris. Congratulations. Now, Verdi's La Traviata is one of the world's most famous operas, the tragic love story of Violetta and Alfredo. It's the second time you've tackled it. Tell us about this performance.
I guess the challenge of Traviata is how you keep death centre stage without that becoming in any way morbid. It is an exquisite and tragic story that begins with a sense of her own death that will come to us 2 hours later. And it's very important that that is kept in the audience mind. So we invented the idea of a double. She's accompanied by wonderful Aurelia Thierry, who is her double, a recently dead version of herself. So I guess she is haunted almost by her own ghost, but a ghost that helps her come to terms with her own death, finally cradling her in her arms and sending her safely to the terrible Act 3, where she dies alone in a hospital.
The inspiration for Violetta was actually a real woman, Marie Duplessis, a Parisian courtesan who passed away just 5 years before La Traviata opened in Venice in 1852. Now, Frenchman Alexandre Dumas, who wrote the original play, was one of her lovers. When she died of TB, when she was just 23, the whole of Paris mourned, apparently. Is this the best part ever written for a woman in opera, do you think?
Yes. No
Why?
question. And once, indeed, the opera was called Violetta. I mean, the title was changed to The Fallen Woman, but once it was called Violetta. And I think Verdi loved her deeply. I think it's the best Verdi role for a woman, for starters, and is actually deeply feminist. I would never say that necessarily of my own work, but I would say that of Verdi's work. He absolutely put centre stage a courtesan, in front of audiences where most of the men in the audience would have come to the opera with a courtesan on their arms, would have kept it probably quite quiet from the public eye. So he put a fallen woman centre stage. That is absolutely remarkable. But the piece, I don't believe, deals really with any negative feelings about her. I think it's a love story between Verdi and Violetta, really.
So if it is feminist, where does it stand in today's climate then with Me Too, Time's Up? Does it have a place? Because I know there are some opera directors who've changed the endings of the opera, like Carmen, where in the end she lives and she kills Don Jose.
Well, so apparently there's some directors who change the end of Traviata where she lives, but I think that takes the entire experience away from the audience, because what this piece can do is sear our hearts, really. I think destroy us over those 2 hours, and we come out with a greater empathy for those that we might have judged harshly, which I guess is the point of art, really.
Okay, well, let's take a look at a clip from Act 2. You saw her there, the young French soprano Vanina Santoni sings the part of Violetta. Her performance is totally breathtaking. Here she is.
This character has inhabited me for a long time, especially as a soprano. I have long dreamt about playing this role, but kept the idea to one side, as I wasn't ready to take it on. I wanted to be absolutely ready to take it on, not just mentally, but musically.
Are you happy with your choice of Violetta?
Thrilled, yeah. She's remarkable. She has the intelligence, she has the beauty, she has the acting instinct to do this. And I think if any of your viewers do not go to the opera, to come to see her would be a revelation. That there is nothing about her performance that is not something that you would be proud to see in a cinema or a theatre. That it's absolutely real. Pays huge respect to the character, to the human condition, and she's remarkable. She's also suffered a terrible recent family tragedy, and the strength that comes with her performance is quite searing. And I think you can hear people crying in the theatre, which is quite something.
Is that the key then? Because to get more people to come to the opera, because I went and it is a very distinct crowd. It's not a diverse crowd in the Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. Is that how you're targeting other people, getting younger, more vibrant singers?
Well, it's essential for the opera that they get a new audience. I think opera in the last 10 years, 20 years certainly, I came to it 17 years ago, has changed dramatically. The singers know that they have to act, which they didn't probably over 20 years ago. Their desire to bring in a new audience, an audience that may well indeed represent themselves. I mean, singers come from all walks of life. They come from poor families, working class families, rich families. They come from all cultures. There's a huge amount of wonderful brown and black singers now. There's everybody's there, but the problem for opera is, as you've just said, that the audience does not necessarily yet reflect what may be actually now found on stage, and it has to. And it's becoming a great passion of mine to try and push that and solve that. And I think one of the reasons to make a Traviata, which is the most performed opera of all operas, also perhaps one of the most accessible, is to attempt to start to bring in a new audience. And this probably will not be done necessarily through the opera houses. My hope is perhaps to take this production or make a production that goes into the commercial theatre, thus actually hopefully appealing to a brand new audience, the audience that does go to musicals, that pay much more money to go to a musical than you might pay to go to an opera. This is, of course, one of the great ironies, that people think opera tickets are unaffordable and yet will buy a family of 4 tickets for The Lion King or Mary Poppins or whatever it might be. So that's the next aim. I think that's the next ambition.
Okay. And Deborah, you say you're not necessarily a feminist when it comes, or we don't see that in your work, but you are a champion of women in theatre and opera. You cast Fiona Shaw as the king in Richard II. You're also the first woman to be given sole charge of a production in the main house of the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. In this time where women are standing up and demanding more equality, how is that going to affect the theatre and opera world, do you think, or have you seen changes already?
Well, I've seen great changes since I began. I mean, when I joined the Royal Shakespeare Company, I joined in 1987, and I was the first woman there since the wonderful and very famous director called Buzz Goodbody, who tragically killed herself, and which was made for a very difficult time when I began, because every interview I had aged 20, 27 was, what's it like to be a woman theatre director, which is unanswerable. I mean, there is no answer. It's like being a theatre director. So, of course, my initial response was to push back from that. I mean, the Me Too world is a complicated thing, and we're certainly not going to discuss it at length now. But, I mean, it is very interesting, isn't it, that those of us who were around in the 80s were fighting precisely the same fight. So it's as if it was forgotten for a while, and we wonder where it went. I mean, I think what we really mean is that not quite enough was done. But the fight is particular, I feel, as to where it should be placed. I mean, there need to be, for example, in the theatre, more roles written for women, and there need to be more administrators in the theatre that are women. Actually, in England, the job is done as regards how many theatre directors there are in the gender area. But I think we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out. But it's good that a younger generation are doing exactly what we did 30 years ago.
And I have to ask you, I've seen on your Twitter feed there's some Brexit conversation. How do you see the future of British theatre without Europe?
Well, it's essential we keep Europe. that's absolutely essential. These next few days will be an extraordinary moment to witness. It's extremely alarming. What's happened? It's the most terrible self-inflicted wound, and hopefully we will see a way forward. But I was simply looking at my own team the other day that I work with around the world, and there's only 2 British passports in a team there of Italians, French, Belgium, and the problem is when the productions come home. I made a Billy Budd production that began in Madrid and then played in Rome last year. Will come to the Royal Opera House in the spring, but it will be very difficult for me to bring my assistants that work with me at such moments. That's just a personal example. There are so many more. It will be devastating for the music world, for the instrumentalists in particular, and it will be very bad for the young ones that I would wish to take on, young assistants and people of that sort. But the impact on science, equally devastating. So no, it has. Something has to change.
Okay, well, let's end on a brighter note. We end every show on our guest's cultural pick of the moment. What have you chosen for us, Deborah?
I chose what I saw yesterday, which is the Picasso Bleu et Rose exhibition at the Musée d'Orsay, which is Picasso as a very young man, straight from Spain into Paris, and charts really the first 10 years of his work, and is remarkable because you get to see everything. You get to see all of his influences. So he's painting like so many other people. He's painting like Lautrec. He's painting like so many others. You also get to see his mistakes, which I think is very gratifying for any of us who work in the arts. So I enjoyed his mistakes, but I enjoyed the things such as this wonderful image that accompanies the exhibition. That's not a mistake. That's one of the most marvellous paintings I've ever seen.
Okay, well, the exhibition Picasso Blue and Pink is on at the Musée d'Orsay until the 6th of January. Thank you so much, Deborah, for joining us. Deborah Warner's La Traviata is on until the 9th of December at Paris's Théâtre des Champs-Élysées. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.